I gave my first time to Robert Hamilton. After that night, I thought I was about to become Mrs. Hamilton. But he just left, saying, to be a Hamilton wife, you're not good enough. Heartbroken, I left for Europe. 3 years later, I returned home and got engaged to someone else. His eyes were red-rimmed, his collar half open, his tie askew, and stubble on his chin. Are you going to abandon me again? On the third day after I returned home, Olivia Hamilton organized a welcome-back party/get-together for me. Not many people came, just friends from our social circle. No one expected to run into Robert Hamilton here. When the tall, striking man in a black leather jacket walked in, everyone gasped. After all, it was widely known within our circle that things had ended badly between us. The atmosphere in the room froze for a few seconds. Olivia quickly smoothed things over with a smile. Rob, what are you doing here? Come, sit down. Robert Hamilton casually scanned the sofa, his eyes utterly cold. A moment later, he chose a seat furthest from me, not looking at me once. Everyone present grew up in this kind of social scene, adept at reading the room. Robert Hamilton's attitude clearly showed his displeasure towards me. No matter how curious they were, no one brought up what happened 3 years ago. It remained an unspoken understanding. Sophia, I really didn't invite him, you know. He asked me this morning and I accidentally mentioned it. I didn't expect him to actually show up. Seeing my pale face, Olivia leaned in and whispered an apology. I didn't say anything, just shook my head slightly. I had expected that I would inevitably run into him someday upon returning to Newport. I just hadn't expected to see him again here. It was all so sudden and awkward. Right, we left things in such a hurry back then, we didn't even break up. We just silently acknowledged it. How could meeting again be any more graceful? I lowered my head and glanced at the empty glass on the coffee table. I paused. My family's business hasn't been doing well in recent years, and many former partner companies have distanced themselves. They were afraid of offending the Hamilton family, who practically run Newport, just for the sake of doing some business. I simply got up, poured a drink and walked straight towards Robert. I stopped, my gaze fixed on him. The man sat with his legs crossed, leisurely playing with the glass in his hand. His nose bridge was high, his lips thin. He exuded an aura that warned others to keep their distance. I curved my lips into a polite smile. Robert, I'm late. It wasn't my voice. Before I could speak, I was interrupted by a woman's voice from the doorway. I turned my head at the sound. It was Victoria Chin, our high school classmate. She wore a white dress, with light makeup on her face and a suitable smile. She walked past me and sat directly beside Robert Hamilton. She sat in the spot that used to be exclusively mine. My friends gasped. They all watched my expression. My face remained calm and gentle, but my fingernails dug deep into my palm, hidden behind the glass. Then she naturally linked her arm through his, her expression intimate. And Robert Hamilton's body language showed no resistance whatsoever. When he looked at her, his eyes were full of tenderness. In contrast, I had stood in front of him for a long time and hadn't even received a glance. My heart felt as if it was being repeatedly slashed by a sharp knife, the pain accompanied by a bloody mess. The immense sense of disparity made it hard for me to breathe. I remembered that Victoria Chen's family wasn't well off, and she had almost no interaction with Robert Hamilton. So when did they get together? She inadvertently exposed the dark green glimmer on her wrist, interrupting my questions, but also glaringly hurting my eyes. I recognized it instantly. That diamond pendant was a Hamilton family heirloom, passed down from wife to wife. In Robert Hamilton's generation, only the wife he acknowledged had the right to wear it. It was something I had once dreamed of possessing. After our first intimacy, enduring the tearing pain throughout my body, I secretly put it on while he was in the shower. My heart was full of anticipation, waiting for him to say he'd marry me, but I never expected him to leave only with a cold remark, to be a Hamilton wife, you're not good enough. He pulled off the pendant without mercy and left without looking back. Now, someone else had put it on so easily. What was the point of my decades of careful effort? My heart instantly plummeted to the bottom. The light hit my eyelashes, casting a dark shadow. I closed my eyes for a moment. When I lifted my eyelids, Robert Hamilton was smiling at her indulgently. Then he looked at me, his face impatient. My fingers gripping the glass trembled slightly. The next second, I forced a strained smile, my voice cold. "Mr. Hamilton, wishing you and Victoria all the best." I tilted my head back and drank the wine, not noticing the flicker of pain in Robert Hamilton's eyes. After leaving the restroom, I wanted to leave immediately. After texting Olivia, I stood in front of the mirror and saw Robert Hamilton behind me, not far away, his face ashen. He seemed to be in a very bad mood. After a few glasses of wine, the corners of his eyes were red, and his gaze fell on me, undisguised. The penthouse suite is permanently reserved by the Hamilton family, and outsiders are not allowed in. The restroom area was quiet now. I didn't want to interact with him further, so I nodded and turned to leave. I instinctively quickened my steps as I walked past him. I heard him scoff, then my arm was grabbed, and he easily pulled me into his arms. My nose hit his solid chest, instantly stinging and bringing tears to my eyes. "Mr. Hamilton, control yourself." I rubbed my nose, indignant. I frowned and looked directly at him. He didn't look much different from 3 years ago. His facial features were sharp and steady, his pursed lips suggesting a reserved dignity. Only his bloodshot eyes showed his current loss of composure. Robert Hamilton seemed to find something amusing and let out a cold snort. Then he easily lifted me and sat me on the sink counter. This pose was too intimate, the distance constantly closing. Sensing the approaching danger, I panicked, kicking my legs restlessly. "Let go of me, Robert Hamilton. Just now you were calling me Mr. Hamilton so politely, and now you're calling me Robert Hamilton again?" Robert Hamilton held my ankle with one hand, pulling me tighter by the waist. Before I could react, the restroom suddenly plunged into darkness. The dim light from the hallway spilled in, making it barely possible to see. I closed my eyes for a moment to adjust. The next second, the faint smell of cigarette smoke mixed with alcohol sprayed onto my face. Robert Hamilton braced his hands on the counter, leaning in towards me. I immediately opened my eyes and pushed him away, shouting, "Robert Hamilton, you already have a girlfriend. What do you think I am?" He seemed to snap back to reality. His expression was instantly replaced by disgust. "What do you think you are? Looking at you makes me sick. Get back to your Europe and hide, and preferably never come back." When Robert Hamilton left, he kicked over the trash can on his way out. 3 years ago, if Robert Hamilton had yelled at me to get lost, I would have left immediately and perhaps even kicked him on my way out. But I couldn't now. My family is on the verge of bankruptcy. I didn't plan to go back to Europe this time. I couldn't go back to Europe. I was about to get married. When my parents first mentioned it, I wasn't surprised, and surprisingly, I felt calm. Perhaps it was because the lessons my parents had instilled in me since childhood were had as the only daughter of the Miller family, marrying for the family's prosperity is my duty. I believed this deeply. As for the groom, that hadn't been decided yet. My parents were still looking. As I walked downstairs in my slippers, I happened to overhear them discussing it. After looking around, only the Hamilton family is the most suitable, but unfortunately, that Robert Hamilton. My dad sighed deeply and didn't speak for a while. I pursed my lips. The Hamilton family has deep roots in Newport and holds absolute power in various industries. They are the object of aspiration for the wealthy in Newport. Robert Hamilton is the only male heir in his generation, and everyone in Newport wants their daughter to marry him. In fact, ever since I could remember, my parents had designated Robert Hamilton as my future husband. To be able to marry him, I specifically bought a notebook and wrote down 986 things about him. Robert Hamilton's favorite color is white. He loves playing basketball. He has mild OCD and dislikes people touching his things. To cater to his preferences, my wardrobe was filled with various styles of white dresses. While other friends learned ballet and piano, I also had to learn basketball. Thankfully, everything had gone smoothly. We dated, and it even reached the point of discussing marriage. Both sets of parents were very pleased with the match. But after our first night together, he suddenly abandoned me. He didn't contact me again for the next 2 weeks. Overnight, I became the laughingstock of Newport. My upbringing wouldn't allow me to stay, which was why I went to Europe. My thoughts returned, and my parents' conversation drifted back into my ears. I heard that the son the Green family acknowledged 3 years ago, Ethan Green. I didn't pay much attention. I just thought the name Ethan Green sounded a bit familiar. I figured he was just a rich kid I had seen at some party or another. It wasn't uncommon. Life in Newport passed quickly. A week went by in a blink. While Olivia Hamilton and I were having dinner at a restaurant, we ran into the Ethan Green my parents had mentioned. A handsome, tall man in a black business suit walked into another private room. My gaze involuntarily followed him. Olivia noticed and quickly said, "That's our high school senior, you've met him." I withdrew my gaze, frowning slightly. I tried hard to recall the familiar face in my mind. That's Ethan Green. People used to say he was the Green family's illegitimate son. He was only acknowledged a couple of years ago. I suddenly understood. Ethan Green was Ethan Green. I gradually matched the tall, long-legged man who walked with purpose to the quiet, reserved face from my memory. Olivia said that Ethan Green was personally brought back by Old Man Green 3 years ago. That was soon after I went to Europe. Naturally, I wasn't aware. Since then, he took charge of Green Enterprises, working decisively and efficiently, and quickly became the head of Green Enterprises. At first, the Green Enterprises board strongly opposed, but Old Man Green personally stepped in to overrule dissenting opinions, and the board members had no choice but to shut up. Later, Ethan Green indeed lived up to expectations, taking Green Enterprises management to the next level, doubling its market value. Now, Green Enterprises is comparable to the Hamilton family. No one dared to say anything more. Furthermore, he is cold and distant, not interested in women, and acts decisively, so everyone in Newport kept their distance. Hearing this, a few scenes flashed through my mind. Come to think of it, Ethan Green and I actually had a rather unusual connection. When Olivia Hamilton got into the driver's car to leave, I found an excuse to stay behind. As I came out of the restroom after reapplying my lipstick, a clear, wine-like voice drifted into my ears, low and soft. "Sophia, long time no see." At the sound, I turned and looked up. The man was dressed in a suit, his figure straight and tall. The restaurant was brightly lit, and the gentle music was pleasant to the ear. Loose strands of hair fell over his strong brow ridge, and his gaze was fixed on me. After a few minutes of small talk, Ethan Green offered to drive me home. I didn't refuse and gave him the address for my downtown apartment. Ethan Green hadn't been drinking, so he didn't use a driver. On the way back to the apartment, I suddenly received a message from Victoria Chin. "Sophia, I know you and Robert had a passionate relationship back then, but now I am his fiancé. During the 3 years you were away, I was the one who stayed by his side, helping him through his tough times. 3 years ago, he slept with you and then discarded you. To him, you're nothing more than spoiled garbage. Now that you're back home, I hope you have some backbone and stop shamelessly interfering in our lives." I looked out the car window at the flashing neon lights and smiled to myself. Back then, who in Newport didn't know that I, Sophia Miller, was the person Robert Hamilton cherished most? Anyone who offended me, whether intentional or not, would always show up later with unexplained bruises or injuries. At every party, I was always the most dazzling, the one everyone gathered around. But now, things were different. The woman by Robert Hamilton's side was someone else. The Miller family's eldest daughter was just a used-up shoe discarded by young Master Hamilton. Without the Hamilton family's protection, the Miller family would soon collapse. By then, Sophia Miller's proud head would have to be bowed. Perhaps she might even become a plaything for Newport's rich young men. I had heard bits and pieces of what people in the circle were saying. Though I was resentful, I couldn't refute it. Those 3 years abroad were not easy for me. My inherent pride had long been worn down to almost nothing. Before I blocked Victoria Chin, she sent one last photo. Beside a neck covered in kiss marks lay a tired, sleeping Robert Hamilton. His lips were tinged with red, clearly having just experienced a passionate encounter. My heart skipped a beat. My fingertips holding the phone trembled uncontrollably. I saved the screenshot. After a long while, the car stopped. Ethan Green turned to look at me. Sophia, we're here. I didn't turn my head. In a daze, the face with exquisite features reflected on the car window slowly merged with the face that had confessed to me that drunken night. My dormant heart started to burn again. Then, I blurted out, "Senior, did you still mean what you said that night?" The moment the room door closed, a shower of dense kisses rained down. Ethan Green cupped my face and pressed me against the door. The reserved, ascetic demeanor he presented in public instantly vanished, leaving only impatient desire fueled by love. He took off my coat and scarf. His eyes, filled with a misty, lingering tenderness, slowly moved down from my eyes to my lips. The next second, he leaned down, and his slightly cool, thin lips covered my tender ones. His tongue skillfully slipped in, our lips and teeth intertwined. Fireworks went off in my heart immediately, a strange, subtle sensation. My legs felt too weak to stand. Ethan Green held me by the waist, just managing to keep me steady. Then he picked me up. It was only when I felt the soft bed beneath me that fear belatedly surfaced. "It hurts. Ethan Green, be gentle." My first time hadn't been a pleasant experience. I was a little afraid. As my fingernails dug into my flesh, Ethan Green's hand covered my palm. "Sophia, relax." His low, magnetic voice held an indescribable charm, quickly easing the tension throughout my body. He didn't rush. His well-defined fingers gently traced my waist. The electric touch made me tremble involuntarily. The area between my thighs became wet without me realizing it. My face was hot with embarrassment. He suddenly lowered his head, and as he deepened his movements, his gentle kisses fell again. Immediately after, an intimate atmosphere unapologetically filled the room, making it hard to breathe. I quickly became exhausted, letting him take from me tirelessly. But aside from being tired, it didn't seem to hurt. It was completely different from the feeling I'd had with Robert Hamilton when he'd been venting his anger. "Ethan Green, didn't people say you weren't interested in women? Does Sophia know now if the rumors were true?" Ethan Green chuckled softly. I playfully glared at him. The dim light fell on his exquisitely handsome profile. I saw myself reflected in his affectionate pupils, like a shy flower, a budding bloom opening. On the glass window, our forms were pressed close, movements blurring with intensity. Not until much later did everything quiet down. I was woken up by the urgent ringing of my phone. When I answered, Robert Hamilton's cold voice sounded. "Sophia Miller, it's not impossible for you to become Mrs. Hamilton. The usual place. Make me happy, and I'll let you be Mrs. Hamilton." For a moment, I didn't react. My mind was still in a daze. Perhaps because I didn't care anymore, I wasn't in a hurry. Hearing those words, I felt no excitement or joy whatsoever. I just slowly glanced at the bed beside me. It was empty. I felt a little disappointed. I touched it, and it was still warm, so he must have gone downstairs to buy breakfast. There was warm water on the bedside table. As the warm water went down, a warmth spread in my stomach. I became a bit more clear-headed. I realized Robert Hamilton was probably bored and using me for amusement. Just as I was about to hang up, a sweet, delicate female voice came from his end. "Robert, who are you talking to? Can you get me a towel?" It was Victoria Chin. Remembering the baffling messages from last night, an unnamed anger surged within me. Although I, Sophia Miller, was no longer as glorious as before, I was not so down and out as to be at anyone's beck and call. One told me to get lost, the other told me to come running. Being toyed with back and forth by the two of them. This was the first time in my life I had gotten angry at Robert Hamilton. "Robert Hamilton, I don't care about being your Mrs. Hamilton. Go find someone who does, and don't ever come looking for me again. Furthermore, I think you're disgusting, and even hearing your voice makes me sick." After saying those words, I felt the pent-up frustration of years finally disperse. I changed into a pink and white elegant silk dress, and my perfectly applied makeup enhanced my beautiful features. Only the faint pink marks on my neck were blushworthy, but thankfully Newport was already in deep winter, and a scarf hid them. When Ethan Green returned, he brought me my favorite pastries. I picked one up and took a bite. Looking up, I saw his nose was red, and there were still a few snowflakes in his hair. It turned out it had quietly snowed in Newport last night. I pulled back the curtains, and outside, the world was indeed covered in silver, with snowflakes fluttering down. Robert Hamilton stared at the hung-up phone, unable to regain his composure for a long time. A moment later, he suddenly chuckled. He seemed to find it genuinely amusing. Or perhaps he was just furious. Sophia Miller's words echoed in his ears, saying he was disgusting, saying she didn't care about being his Mrs. Hamilton. He had never said those words to her, yet she was the one accusing him first. In all these years, besides her, he hadn't even touched another woman's hand. How was he disgusting? Robert Hamilton reconsidered. Did Sophia perhaps misunderstand that he was jealous? Women only get jealous if they care about him. Thinking this, Robert Hamilton's mood instantly brightened. As he walked the lounge back into the private room, the corners of his mouth unconsciously turned up. The moment he stepped into the room, a friend's words struck him like lightning. Look everyone, Sophia Miller has a boyfriend. Who is it? So sudden? Can't quite tell, only half of his back is visible, but he looks taller than Rob. Robert Hamilton strode forward, his face extremely grim. The room fell silent. He snatched the phone. After seeing the photo, his whole body trembled slowly. In the picture, Sophia Miller smiled brightly at the camera, while a man sat not far behind her, engrossed in work. They looked warm and sweet together. Then he noticed the faint, almost imperceptible red mark on her neck. He clenched his fist instinctively. His knuckles cracked, showing his intense anger. Seeing something he cherished so dearly being touched by someone else, his heart felt like it was being slowly sliced, a dull pain spreading. That line, our first snow together, pierced his eyes even more fiercely. She had once wished that every year when Newport had its first snow, he would be by her side. But now she was going to grow old with someone else. He slammed the phone down and turned to leave, his face as cold as frost. Victoria Chin stood by the door, witnessing the whole scene. Her voice was clear and sharp. Robert Hamilton, are you going to find her now? Do you still love her? Are you not bothered by what happened 3 years ago? Her words reached Robert Hamilton's ears, not missing a single beat. Robert was instantly frozen in place. Right. Was he really not bothered? 3 years ago, he flew to the Los Angeles branch for an inspection. He had already prepared Sophia Miller's passport in advance. But the night before their departure, she had used being too tired as an excuse not to go. He hadn't forced her. He was eager to return to Newport to see Sophia. The originally planned week-long trip was completed in just 4 days. After returning early, he learned she had gone to a neighboring town/city, and hadn't returned overnight. Accompanying her was her senior, Ethan Green. If it had been anyone else, he could have understood. But it had to be Ethan Green, the one she had publicly defended several times. He pretended everything was normal, hoping she would tell him the truth, but she chose to lie. She insisted that she hadn't gone anywhere those days and had stayed home obediently. Not long after, his high school classmate Victoria Chin came to him with several clear photos. He gripped the photos, veins bulging on his hands. Sophia Miller, who claimed to be staying home obediently, was leaning against the man's shoulder. Her expression was completely relaxed. There was no sign of fatigue. It looked like they were about to part ways, cherishing their time together and leaning on each other for warmth. After that, he took her violently, as if venting his rage. But there was no bloodstain on the white sheets. At that moment, he became convinced that Sophia Miller didn't love him, but his power and status. If he were to lose his power, Sophia Miller would undoubtedly abandon him and run to Ethan Green. He resented that she still harbored another man in her heart. He resented that she didn't love him. He resented that she lied and ran off just to give her first time to Ethan Green. Robert Hamilton ultimately did not go looking for Sophia Miller. Winter in Newport was very cold. Everything in the world was covered in thick goose feather snow. The villa was well heated, offering a warmth that felt isolated from the outside world. Ethan Green sat respectfully on the sofa. Beside him were priceless betrothal gifts. My parents looked at the 10% of Green Enterprises shares and fell into thought. It wasn't until the clock hand on the wall completed a full rotation that they came back to their senses. After exchanging glances, they looked up at Ethan Green again, still finned in. Gee, it's hard to believe. They received a polite, affirmative smile from the man. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, Ethan Green is here to ask for Sophia's hand in marriage. Please forgive me if there are any improprieties in the customs. No, no, no. Not at all. It's very good, very good. My parents were very pleased and nodded repeatedly. The wedding was quickly set for the 9th day of next month. Although Newport is a large city, the social circle is small. The news quickly spread. Naturally, it reached Robert Hamilton's ears as well. Robert Hamilton leaned against the pool table. He still had that relaxed, casual demeanor, as if he didn't care about the news at all. Not until the cigarette between his fingers burned down and the ash fell onto his hand, slightly hot, did he speak unhurriedly. When did this happen? Robert Hamilton's face was expressionless, but his husky voice trembled for a moment. Although it was only for a moment, his friends knew him well. Robert Hamilton, usually so reckless and wild, would instantly become tense whenever anything concerning Sophia Miller came up. Just in the last couple of days, I heard the Miller family is already preparing for the wedding. Humph. Robert Hamilton suddenly let out a cold laugh. He lowered his eyes and said casually, "Besides me, who else could Sophia Miller possibly marry?" The head of Green Enterprises. Ethan Green. His friend nervously stated the groom's name. The next second, Robert Hamilton lunged forward, grabbing his friend's collar. What? Say that again. Who is Sophia Miller marrying? His friend's face turned pale with fear. Ethan Green, the head of Green Enterprises. The surroundings became silent, as if all sound had been muffled. Robert Hamilton violently let go and pushed the man away. His legs felt weak, and he stumbled backward a few steps. His heart felt as if it were being pierced by 1,000 needles, the pain making it difficult to breathe. Robert. Hamilton saw his own bloodshot eyes on the display screen opposite him. His eyes about to split, and that almost distorted face. He picked up the ashtray beside him and slammed it fiercely into the huge display screen, causing a sudden, shattering sound. Screen fragments flew everywhere instantly. The lively pool hall came to an abrupt halt. Everyone's eyes were fixed on him. Their expressions were surprised and fearful. Robert Hamilton roared in anger. "What are you looking at? Do you want to lose your eyes?" As he stormed out, in the light behind him was Victoria Chen's cruel, emotionless face. When Robert Hamilton stood outside my apartment door, it was already late at night. The apartment building wasn't tall, and the snow on his hair hadn't had time to melt when he arrived. His head was covered in white snow, as if he had aged overnight. When I opened the door, I was startled. The man's collar was half open, his tie was askew, and there was stubble on his chin. He stood there slightly out of breath, looking a bit disheveled. I suddenly remembered the elevator was broken, so he must have climbed the stairs. I pursed my lips, remembering how Robert Hamilton was usually meticulous and had mild OCD. A thought suddenly flashed through my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. However, the next moment, his words confirmed my suspicion. Robert Hamilton stepped forward, wrapped his arms around me, and pulled me into his embrace. "Sophia Miller, I won't allow you to marry Ethan Green. You belong to me, Robert Hamilton. I don't agree. No one else is allowed to touch you." Even looking disheveled, his words were still incredibly arrogant. This was Robert Hamilton, the eldest young master of the Hamilton family in Newport. Obsessive, domineering, unreasonable. But he seemed to have forgotten. I, Sophia Miller, was not an object, but a person with my own will. Only I could decide who to love and who not to love. The moment tears welled up in my eyes, I pushed him away with force. My raised palm landed heavily on his face. He froze, stunned. A clear handprint marked his cheek. But I still didn't feel satisfied. Memories from abroad were filled with countless nights of longing, tears of grievance, and the malicious laughter of those who mocked me. And all of this, he knew perfectly well. But his pride prevented him from bowing his head, so he let the rumors and gossip force me to give in first. The grievances accumulated over 3 years exploded. I practically screamed, "Robert Hamilton, what right do you have to control me? What identity, what position, gives you the right to order me around? You were the one who refused to marry me and give me status 3 years ago, leaving me to face scorn, and now you show up in the middle of the night to stop me from marrying someone else. What exactly do you want from me? Robert Hamilton, listen closely. Who I marry is my freedom, and it has nothing to do with you." Seeing my tears, he instantly became flustered. It felt like something was stuck in his throat, causing a painful discomfort. He paused for a long time before speaking, a hint of hope flickering in his eyes. "What if I said I love you, and I'm willing to marry you now? Would you be willing to give me another chance? To choose me between me and Ethan Green?" I didn't answer. I walked straight into the room and took out the valuable pink diamond ring from the drawer. I received it on my 18th birthday party. I wore a noble gown and a magnificent tiara. Robert Hamilton had kissed my forehead reverently. "Sophia, when you reach the legal marriage age, I'll personally put the wedding ring on your finger." I had kept this diamond ring all these years. But now, it should be returned to its rightful owner. When I handed it to him, Robert Hamilton's hand was trembling. He knew. He had received my answer. It was a refusal. After a while, he looked up at me. He gave a self-deprecating smile, his voice hoarse and bitter, as expected. "Are you going to abandon me again?" When Robert Hamilton left, his back carried a hint of loneliness. I looked up, watching him slowly disappear into the darkness. My heart was full of questions. Regarding what happened back then, everyone knew he, Robert Hamilton, was the one who wronged me. Why did he seem to be the more wronged party? And what else was there that I didn't know? After waking up from a heavy sleep, I saw a few messages from my high school friends on my phone. They had heard I was back home and wanted to invite me for a spa session to catch up. They chose Mountain View Resort in the South District. Things with my company had been complicated recently, and I had initially intended to refuse. But then she mentioned that she knew a little about what happened back then. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. The truth, tantalizingly close, was like a sweet, delicious cake, extremely tempting to me. Plus, it wasn't far away. I agreed. Before getting out of the car, I specifically sent my location to Ethan Green and asked him to pick me up when I was done. "Okay, call me when you finish." Adjusting my sweater, I quickly walked into the spa area. Looking around, behind the swirling steam, my friends were already sitting by the edge, having changed into their swimsuits. Seeing me arrive, she quickly got up. "Sophia, long time no see. Come on in." After exchanging a few pleasantries, I changed into a strapless skirt. As I stepped into the warm spa water, I felt like soft silk was gliding over my skin, and my entire body relaxed. A moment later, I cut straight to the point and asked about what happened back then. She pretended to be annoyed. "Oh, Sophia, don't be in such a hurry. We haven't seen each other in so long, and you immediately start talking about that. You don't care about me at all." As she said this, a flicker of unnaturalness crossed her eyes. I just assumed it was her personality from years past, still fond of joking and acting spoiled. Helplessly, I chatted with her for a few more minutes. At this point, she offered me a freshly brewed cup of tea. Not suspecting anything, I took the teacup and took a small sip. The tea, nurtured by Mountain Dew, gave off a delicate fragrance. I put down the empty cup and looked up. My friend's gaze was fixed on my teacup. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. I sensed something was wrong. Looking around, I caught a glimpse of a figure on the floor behind the curtain. My breath hitched, and I clenched my fists underwater. Who was that person? What did they want to do to me? What was their purpose in tricking me into coming here? A faint fear crept into my heart. I forced myself to remain calm. Changing the subject, I forced a smile, keeping my tone steady. Didn't you have a baby recently? I saw a really smart stroller. See if you like it. If you do, I'll buy it as a gift for the baby. We already agreed, you know, your baby has to recognize me as godmother. As I spoke, I started to climb out of the water. But my legs suddenly felt weak. I dug my fingernails deep into my palms to barely stand steady. I tried hard to hide my inner panic. Grabbing my phone, I quickly dialed Ethan Green's number. The phone only rang for a second before someone snatched it and threw it into the pool. I tried hard to widen my eyes to see who it was, but my vision remained blurry. Soon, the phone went silent, and my heart sank with it. Despair swallowed me whole. I finally couldn't stand it anymore and collapsed onto the floor. Just then, a familiar female voice sounded in my ear. I told you not to be shameless, but you wouldn't listen. And you dared to provoke Robert Hamilton again. There's only one position for Mrs. Hamilton, and it has to be mine. Victoria Chen? I felt someone lift me up. The movements were rough. It seemed to be a fat, big-headed man. Then, the world spun, and I was roughly thrown onto a bed. The door slammed shut with a bang. Victoria Chen stood by the bed, looking down at the unconscious Sophia Miller with a condescending gaze. Her expression was twisted and malicious. She held a camcorder tightly in her hand, which occasionally trembled, showing her current excitement. She was very curious. Would the princess, who was always surrounded by admirers, still hold her head high after being trampled into the mud? Recalling the past years, Victoria Chen's eyes welled up with tears of excitement. She had stumbled and struggled for 6 years to get from a remote mountain village to the Hamilton family in Newport. On the same birthday, Sophia Miller could wear an expensive noble gown, surrounded by crowds, receiving countless well wishes and compliments, with gifts too valuable for Victoria Chen to imagine casually piled in a corner. Meanwhile, she could only hide in the unnoticed darkness, like a gloomy mouse, peering at Sophia Miller's happiness. It wasn't fair. At that moment, she secretly vowed to climb up step by step through her own efforts. To take away Sophia Miller's friends, to take away the Robert Hamilton Sophia Miller was most proud of. Then, she too would become the princess everyone envied. Perhaps fate had seen that she had suffered too much in her first 18 years. For the first time in her life, her wish came true. Sophia Miller was abandoned by Robert Hamilton and became the laughingstock of the Newport Circle. After she went abroad, Victoria Chen seized the opportunity to get close to Robert Hamilton, quietly accompanying him for 3 years until she finally became his publicly acknowledged girlfriend. She wore the diamond pendant unique to the Hamilton wife, becoming the respected sister-in-law in the circle. But she knew this wasn't just chance. It was a calculated certainty. She was the one who had leaked the news of Sophia Miller going to the neighboring town/city mountain resort 3 years ago to Ethan Green. Through long-term observation, she had already seen that the relationship between the two of them was not simple. However, due to Robert Hamilton, both of them chose to keep it hidden in their hearts. She had thought that a man and a woman alone in a room would not be able to control themselves, but unexpectedly, they only talked all night. Seeing such a rare opportunity, how could she give it up? After taking several ambiguous photos from different angles, she anonymously sent them all to Robert Hamilton. But she underestimated his methods. He found her the next day. With a cold face, he forced her to delete all the photos. At that moment, she was overwhelmed by despair and was prepared for the worst. But she didn't give up and secretly put something in the water Sophia Miller drank. This caused her not to bleed during their first intimacy. This small act became the catalyst that drove the two of them apart. Now, she was about to become the envied Mrs. Hamilton, but Sophia Miller's sudden return home disrupted all her plans. How could she not hate her? If Sophia Miller had just stayed away from Robert Hamilton, she might have let her go, but she insisted on going against her, even making Robert Hamilton leave her late at night. At that moment, she felt the urge to kill. If Robert Hamilton was still willing to accept Sophia Miller, it was because he hadn't personally seen her fall into the mud. This time, she would personally push Sophia Miller into the abyss, making it impossible for Robert Hamilton to tolerate her. When Ethan Green received Sophia Miller's call, he was in a very important meeting. It was almost a sixth sense. He quickly realized something was wrong. Ignoring his assistant, he called the meeting to a halt. As he hurried into the underground garage, he called back. The busy signal and lack of answer further confirmed his suspicion. All the way his temples throbbed. It usually took half an hour to drive from the downtown apartment to the resort, but he drove at full speed and arrived in 5 minutes. He ran countless red lights on the way. When he arrived, his heart almost leaped out of his throat. The hotel room was a mess. Seeing her, his eyes immediately turned red. Sophia Miller lay on the bed, unconscious. Water was still dripping from her hair. Glass shards were deeply embedded in her palm, a shocking sight. Her cheek was swollen and red, and there was blood at the corner of her mouth. Clearly, she had been abused while resisting. When the door was kicked open, the fat, big-headed man hadn't even had time to unbuckle his pants. "What the hell? Who is it? Interrupting my fun?" He turned around, annoyed. Ethan Green lunged forward, grabbed him by the back of the neck, and struck him with deadly force in every punch. He worked out weakly and had a toned chest and abs. Combined with his height advantage, the man was lifted and his head was repeatedly slammed against the wall. The wall and his skull collided with a thud. Thud, thud, thud. Each sound struck Victoria Chin, who was frozen in terror. The camcorder in her hand continued to record. Suddenly, she felt the surrounding air pressure drop. A chill immediately crept up her limbs. She slowly turned around. Robert Hamilton's enraged, dark face appeared before her eyes. Cold sweat soaked her back. She knew. She was finished. Everything was over. It was only when Victoria Chin was taken to the Hamilton family basement and subjected to private punishment that she truly recognized the man before her. He was fierce, brutal, and merciless. He didn't even blink when using a burning hot iron to brand her. Smelling her burning skin, his eyes showed no pity, only disgust. She suddenly realized he didn't love her at all. She had never truly entered his heart. She had never even stood on the same level as him. Seeing R. Obert Hamilton go mad for Sophia Miller, she understood her own folly. These past 3 years were nothing but a joke. In the end, she told him everything with a mocking attitude. She thought her birth was originally an absurd mistake. Trading her life for the 3 years they had missed didn't seem like a loss. Knowing the truth, Robert Hamilton was struck by lightning. The iron in his hand fell to the ground. He breathed rapidly, his chest heaving violently, his heart feeling as if it would burst from his body. His face was a mask of shock and disbelief. He felt completely paralyzed, as if struck by lightning. The surroundings were quiet. A deadly silence. A foul smell still lingered in the air. His throat felt sore, making him nauseous and wanting to vomit. Robert Hamilton didn't know how he walked out of the basement. Each step he took felt like a knife slicing through his heart, a tearing pain. He walked up the stairs and out into the courtyard outside the villa. Large goose feather snow flew everywhere, covering the sky and earth. An icy chill penetrated Newport to the bone. His eyes were hollow as he stared blankly into the distance. The servants called out to him several times, but he seemed not to hear them. He didn't know how long passed. Until snow covered his entire body. Only then did his knees give way, and he collapsed to his knees in the snow. So, he had misunderstood Sophia Miller all these 3 years. He could have been lucky enough to have her. He was the one who pushed her away, pushed her into Ethan Green's arms. It was his twisted thoughts, thinking Sophia Miller was impure, that caused them to miss out on their life together. He deserved this. The distance was a vast expanse of white, nothing could be seen. He dared not imagine how he would spend the rest of his life without Sophia Miller. It was his own fault, and fate was punishing him severely. The price was losing Sophia Miller forever. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital. Ethan Green was sitting by my side. Seeing me open my eyes, his bloodshot eyes immediately lit up. "Sophia, you're awake." I nodded. As I was about to speak, my throat burned as if it were on fire. He quickly got up and held a cup of warm water to my lips. I took a sip. The pain in my throat lessened slightly. I looked up at him. My eyes burned with the need for confirmation. His eyes instantly turned red, and he repeatedly whispered reassurances. Nothing happened at all. I breathed a sigh of relief. Leaning back against the pillow, I felt relieved as I listened to him recount everything. After hearing the whole story, my expression was calm, showing no emotion. But my hand hidden under the blanket was occasionally gripping the bedsheet. Ethan Green couldn't help but ask curiously, "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Missing out on Robert Hamilton because of a misunderstanding." I paused and lowered my eyes. I thought about it carefully. Ethan Green stared at me intently, not missing a single one of my micro-expressions. After a few seconds, I looked up, my gaze fixed on the clock on the opposite wall. The hour hand had just passed 12. I shook my head. "Look, a new day has begun. We have to keep moving forward." That night, the snow in Newport fell lightly all night long. Ethan Green and I slept intertwined. When the sun came out the next day, it was exceptionally warm. A spring breeze blew, and everything began to revive. Spring had arrived. End of main text. Epilogue 1. Robert Hamilton's POV. A week before Ethan Green and Sophia Miller's wedding, the Miller family sent me an invitation as well. But I didn't go. That day, I woke up early, grabbed a case of beer/bottles of whiskey, and went back to our middle school alma mater. The students were on winter break, so the school was empty. It was deserted. I walked into our old classroom and found my seat based on Memer. Why? Familiar memories flooded back. In my mind's eye, Sophia Miller wore a high ponytail and a pleated skirt, her mouth full of cookies, glaring at me angrily. I quickly gave in and apologized. "Sophia, please don't be angry. I won't make fun of you again. I promise. Please forgive me, Sophia. I'll do anything you want. Just smile, don't ignore me." Then you have to treat me to dinner, and carry my backpack for a month." Sophia Miller's mind worked quickly, she thought about it carefully. Then she popped another cookie into her mouth. "My lady, are you trying to exhaust your old servant?" I grinned cheekily. Turning around, I easily picked up the sky blue backpack and walked out of the classroom. Sophia Miller's chattering voice was beside me, full of life. When I opened my eyes again, I looked at the quiet classroom in front of me and felt inexplicably irritable. I took a few swigs of whiskey straight from the bottle. My throat instantly burned. I choked back tears. After I sobered up, I suddenly realized something. A large empty space suddenly appeared in my heart. Sophia Miller didn't want me anymore. Today, she was marrying someone else. Along with that came the sharp, pinching pain in my heart. Sophia Miller was clearly soft-hearted. Before, whenever I apologized to her, she would forgive me after not too long. But now, we were no longer like before. Actually, I have a drawer. It holds over 300 plane tickets from Newport to Europe. But every single one was discarded on the way to the airport. Looking back now, I only feel regret. If only I hadn't been so stubborn back then. If only I had bowed my head first back then. If only I hadn't been so greedy back then. But there's no going back. A miss is a miss, no amount of regret helps. In this life, everything I wanted was easy to get. But now I have something I will never be able to obtain. Unconsciously, it had grown dark. The image of Sophia Miller and Ethan Green being intimate automatically came to mind. My head started to pound intensely. I was unwilling. The person I had cherished and loved for over a decade was throwing herself into someone else's arms just like that. But what could I do? I didn't cherish the good times I had with Sophia Miller. Now, in the end, I was left with the fate of losing the one I loved forever. Without a doubt, Sophia Miller will have adorable babies with Ethan Green in the future, and they will be a happy, complete family. Living the life I had most desired in my heart. Sweet, warm, with a loved one by my side. Spending leisure time curled up on the sofa watching movies, chatting with the kids about childhood memories. But all of this would only happen in my dreams now. and I will be alone forever. Epilogue 2, Ethan Green's POV. I never thought I would actually run into Sophia Miller in that neighboring town/city. When I received that text message, I was working a part-time job at a convenience store. At that time, Sophia Miller and I hadn't seen each other in a year. Even so, when I saw something about Sophia Miller, my dormant heart began to beat rapidly. That little girl who tilted her small face, angrily blocking me and warning the bullies from outside the school, was like a ray of light, deeply attracting me. No, she was the source of light itself. Warm, beautiful, kind, resilient. She illuminated my chaotic, dim life. So, I took the few $100s I had and bought a bus ticket. I had my doubts. Maybe she wouldn't even be there. Maybe she had already forgotten about me. But endless days and nights of longing surged like a tide, uncontrollable. I thought even just seeing her from a distance would be enough. The moment I saw Sophia Miller, all my worries were swept away by excitement. It was Sophia Miller who recognized me first. A familiar voice rang out from not far away. "Senior, long time no see." Sophia Miller, wearing a light yellow, puffy dress, ran towards me eagerly. The smile on her face illuminated my whole world. Unconsciously, my lips curved upward as well. That day was the happiest day I had had in over a decade. Without anyone to disturb us, we explored the scenic area like a couple deeply in love. Passing tourists sincerely praised us. What a handsome couple, a match made in heaven. And so, fireworks went off in my heart. When Sophia Miller wasn't looking, the corners of my eyes curved into crescents. That night, Sophia Miller suddenly suggested having a drink. I could tell she had something on her mind, so I didn't spoil the mood and quietly stayed by her side. After a few glasses of wine, her cheeks quickly flushed. After a long while, she spoke with a sad expression. "Senior, actually, I ran away after arguing with my parents. I hate them forcing me to please Robert Hamilton, I hate them constantly talking about making Robert Hamilton happy, and I hate that they always talk about me marrying into the Hamilton family. But I know, as the only daughter of the Miller family, I have to do this. They have no other choice either." Only then did I realize. Even a little princess has worries, she also gets sad. She didn't truly love Robert Hamilton, she was just forced to. My brow furrowed slightly, my eyes fixed on Sophia Miller, filled with heartache. After tonight, I'll have to go back to Newport and be the obedient girl Sophia Miller again. Maybe I'll even get engaged to Robert Hamilton soon. Hearing this, my thin lips pressed together, and my body trembled with suppressed emotion. My hand hanging by my side clenched into a fist. I hated being powerless and without influence, unable to give the Miller family what they wanted. I hated not being able to rescue Sophia Miller from her difficult situation. "Sophia, wait for me." I closed my eyes and spoke softly. "Wait for me to come and marry you." Looking at Sophia Miller, my eyes seemed to hold a certain resolve. Sophia Miller was truly drunk. Her head suddenly rested on my shoulder. My mind went blank. After a while, only when my right arm felt numb did I gently and carefully lay her down. After covering her with a blanket, I left the room alone. I stayed awake all night outside the motel/guest house. When dawn broke, I called Old Man Hamilton and revealed the identity I had long been ashamed to face. The night we got married, I held Sophia Miller and whispered many sweet nothings. When she was shy, I pressed closer, gently biting her ear, my thin lips kissing every burning inch of her body. Amidst the intimacy, I devoured her. I was so grateful. That ray of light finally chose me. The promise made in my youth finally came true after many years. Looking at the person sleeping soundly in my arms, I lowered my head and gently kissed her forehead. "From now on, please take care of me too.